Part 1 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians opens in the late 19th century, in a small, crowded shtetl somewhere in Eastern Europe. This is a place where life is harsh and opportunities are scarce, especially for Jewish families living under restrictive Russian laws and the constant shadow of anti-Semitic prejudice. The story introduces Levi Stein, a boy whose sharp mind and insatiable curiosity immediately set him apart from his peers. From an early age, Levi is acutely aware of the barriers imposed upon him simply because of his faith and heritage. His family struggles to survive, their livelihood threatened by arbitrary taxes and mercurial local authorities. Despite these hardships, his parents instill in him a sense of dignity and an understanding of the value of knowledge. Levi's intelligence manifests in practical ways. He quickly learns to calculate profit margins for his father's small market stall, to anticipate market trends, and to negotiate with local merchants with a persuasive authority beyond his years. But it's not only arithmetic or business acumen that define him. Levi has an instinct for human nature. He notices the biases of the Russian officials, the hypocrisies of wealthy merchants, and the ways in which power is wielded unfairly. These observations fuel both his ambition and his simmering anger. Early experiences with humiliation, being denied opportunities, witnessing injustice against neighbors, or enduring public shaming leave deep psychological scars. Each incident becomes a mental ledger, a record of wrongs to remember and one day to right. A pivotal moment occurs when Levi encounters a traveling merchant who recognizes his talent. This mentor-like figure introduces him to broader concepts of trade, finance, and strategic thinking. Under this guidance, Levi begins to see the world beyond the shtetl's narrow streets. He learns that money is not just a means of survival, but a tool for influence and potentially revenge. The merchant encouraged him to read clandestinely, study ledgers, and think several steps ahead of anyone else. Levi absorbs these lessons voraciously, combining street intelligence with formal instruction to sharpen his mind into a formidable instrument. During this formative period, the story emphasizes Levi's dual nature, his compassion for his family and community, and his growing desire for retribution against those who have oppressed him. The narrative paints his ambition as both a survival strategy and a moral quest. He does not yet seek to amass power for greed alone. Rather, he desires the means to protect those he loves and to reclaim dignity for himself and his people. This internal tension between ethical impulse and strategic ruthlessness will define much of his character as the story progresses. By the end of Part 1, Levi has outgrown the shtetl, both intellectually and emotionally. The stage is set for him to leave home in pursuit of opportunities in larger cities where his talents can flourish. His origins, the hardships, the injustices, the mentorship lay the foundation for the man he is becoming, one who will wield knowledge, cunning, and eventually immense financial power as weapons in his eventual quest for revenge. The reader understands that Levi's journey will not only be about wealth, but about justice, retribution, and the personal cost of ambition. Part 2 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians follows Levi Stein as he leaves the narrow confines of his shtetl and steps into the bustling, perilous world of urban finance. With the lessons from his early mentor ingrained in him, Levi relocates to St. Petersburg, the heart of the Russian Empire's political and financial power. He arrives under a carefully crafted false identity, aware that his Jewish heritage and humble origins would immediately place him at a disadvantage. This disguise is not merely practical, it symbolizes Levi's transition from a marginalized boy to a man capable of navigating worlds that would otherwise exclude him. In the sprawling metropolis, Levi immerses himself in the complexities of commerce and high finance. He begins modestly, taking small jobs in trading houses and banks, absorbing the mechanisms of wealth creation and influence. His early efforts are marked by meticulous observation. He studies the habits of Russian aristocrats, the flow of capital in the city, and the weaknesses in bureaucratic systems. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Levi combines intellect with instinct. He senses opportunities where others see risk. Slowly, through calculated moves and shrewd partnerships, he begins to accumulate modest wealth. Each success reinforces his belief that knowledge and strategy can overcome social barriers. Levi's rise is accelerated by his ability to form alliances across social divides. He befriends sympathetic merchants, foreign financiers, and even disillusioned Russian officials, carefully assessing which relationships will yield leverage. These connections serve as the scaffolding for his growing financial empire. At the same time, Levi cultivates an image of reliability and sophistication, earning the trust of powerful players while masking the careful calculations driving his actions. His dual existence, outwardly loyal, inwardly strategic, underscores his emerging mastery of manipulation and foresight. During this period, Levi's awareness of injustice deepens. He witnesses firsthand the corruption, greed, and callousness of the Russian elite, whose oppressive policies continue to harm ordinary citizens, including his own people. These encounters intensify his determination to use wealth as a tool not only for survival but for revenge and retribution. He realizes that money can serve as both shield and sword. It can protect him from danger, grant him access to corridors of power, and eventually become a means to strike at those who have wronged him. Levi's financial ventures become increasingly audacious. He identifies underperforming assets, orchestrates investments that others consider too risky, and capitalizes on political instability. Each move is meticulously timed, leveraging his intimate knowledge of personalities, alliances, and market trends. By the end of this part, Levi has not only secured significant wealth, but has established a reputation as a formidable financier, feared and respected even by some members of the aristocracy. His presence in the financial world is no longer that of an outsider. He has become a player whose decisions can shift markets and influence political decisions. Part 2 concludes with Levi poised on the threshold of true power. His ambition is no longer merely personal, it has evolved into a mission to challenge and punish the Russian elite, using financial acumen as his weapon. The foundation for the central conflict of the story is laid. Levi's intellect, cunning, and moral complexity will be tested as he maneuvers through the dangerous intersection of wealth, influence, and revenge. Readers see a man shaped by hardship, fueled by ambition, and ready to wield his newfound power against those who once oppressed him. Part 3 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians marks a pivotal turning point in Levi Stein's journey, where the stakes shift from ambitious financial growth to personal survival and a thirst for vengeance. By this stage, Levi has firmly established himself as a rising force in St. Petersburg's financial world. He has amassed wealth, cultivated influential allies, and earned a reputation for intelligence and discretion. Yet, despite his outward success, the dangers of navigating a society rife with corruption and anti-Semitism become increasingly apparent. Levi discovers that even cunning and strategy cannot shield him from the ruthless ambitions of the Russian elite. The betrayal begins subtly. A high-ranking general, whom Levi had believed to be a valuable ally in his financial dealings, approaches him with an enticing proposition, a partnership that promises immense profit and influence. Levi, wary but intrigued, invests his resources and trust into the venture. However, the general's intentions are far from honorable. Behind Levi's back, the general conspires with other aristocrats to seize Levi's investments, frame him for financial misconduct, and undermine his growing influence. The betrayal is both professional and deeply personal, targeting not only Levi's fortunes but also threatening his family, who remain connected to his origins and vulnerable to retaliation. The impact of this betrayal is devastating. Levi faces potential imprisonment, loss of capital, and public disgrace, a situation that would destroy many ordinary men. But Levi is no ordinary man. He survives by relying on his keen intellect, quick reflexes, and the network of loyal allies he has quietly nurtured. He maneuvers through legal loopholes, anticipates the moves of his enemies, and secures temporary protection for his family. This sequence of events highlights Levi's resourcefulness and resilience, emphasizing that his genius extends beyond mere financial acumen into strategic survival. Yet the experience leaves scars. Levi's anger is not merely for lost wealth. It is for the violation of trust and the humiliation inflicted by those he had cautiously considered manipulable. He begins to understand the full scope of Russian corruption. It is systemic, entrenched, and protected by arrogance and power. This revelation crystallizes his worldview. Revenge is no longer optional. It is a necessary measure for justice and self-preservation. Levi's moral code begins to shift. While he had once sought influence to protect and elevate, he now recognizes that cunning and ruthlessness are essential weapons in a world that punishes weakness. In this part, the story also delves into Levi's internal conflict. He struggles with the tension between his ambition and his growing obsession with retribution. The betrayal forces him to confront uncomfortable truths, that power and wealth alone are insufficient without strategy, and that enemies can appear in familiar forms. It is a psychological crucible, shaping Levi into a man capable of intricate manipulation and patient, long-term planning. By the end of Part 3, Levi emerges stronger, sharper, and more dangerous. The betrayal has forged him into a man who will not only defend his fortune, but will systematically dismantle those who wronged him. The stage is set for his meticulous campaign of revenge as his ambition becomes inseparable from his desire for justice, setting the narrative on a thrilling trajectory of intrigue, strategy, and moral complexity. Part 4 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians is the heart of Levi Stein's transformation from a brilliant financier to a master strategist orchestrating revenge. Following the betrayal by the Russian general, Levi's focus shifts from mere survival to the meticulous dismantling of those who wronged him. By this point, his wealth and influence have grown substantially, but Levi knows that raw power alone will not suffice. He must weave a complex web of deception, leverage, and strategic alliances to strike at the Russian elite, exploiting their weaknesses while maintaining the appearance of legitimacy. The narrative in this part emphasizes Levi's methodical brilliance. He begins by mapping out his enemies, aristocrats who betrayed him, corrupt officials who enforce oppressive policies, and financiers complicit in the systemic exploitation of his community. Each target is studied with painstaking detail, their habits, networks, vulnerabilities, and ambitions. Levi's intelligence network expands, including sympathetic insiders, foreign contacts, and spies embedded in critical positions. Through these channels, he gains access to sensitive information, learns about impending political and financial moves, and identifies opportunities to exploit greed and vanity. The story portrays him as a chess player, calculating moves several steps ahead, anticipating reactions, and creating contingencies for every scenario. Levi's acts of revenge are strategic and psychological as much as financial. He manipulates currency exchanges to destabilize markets at precisely the right moments, funds rival factions to sow internal discord, and leaks evidence of corruption to European observers, subtly undermining the credibility of his targets. Each action is carefully disguised as legitimate business, allowing Levi to strike without revealing his hand. This duality, publicly a respected banker, Privately, a relentless orchestrator of retribution adds tension and depth to his character. Readers witness a man who embodies both genius and moral ambiguity, using his intellect as a weapon in a society that undervalued his kind. Part 4 also explores Levi's personal evolution. The narrative delves into his internal calculations, weighing the consequences of each move. While he is driven by revenge, Levi is not reckless. He is aware that missteps could imperil his family, his network, and his long-term goals. His patience becomes a defining trait, reflecting the lessons learned from earlier betrayals. Levi's meticulous planning contrasts sharply with the impulsiveness of his enemies, highlighting his superiority in both intelligence and strategic foresight. The tension in this section escalates as Levi begins to see tangible results. The Russian elite, confident in their perceived invulnerability, start to falter. Market fluctuations, scandals, and alliances engineered by Levi shake their foundations. Yet the story maintains suspense. Each victory is incremental, requiring careful maintenance of his cover and constant vigilance. This creates a narrative rhythm of anticipation, showing that revenge is not instantaneous but the product of intelligence, timing, and patience. By the end of Part 4, Levi has successfully initiated a series of strikes that leave his enemies off balance and questioning their own power. His reputation as a cunning financier is solidified, while the Russian elite remain unaware that they are being methodically undermined. The stage is set for a dramatic confrontation, where Levi's strategies culminate in direct action against those who betrayed him, blending financial acumen, psychological warfare, and moral complexity. The reader sees a man fully transformed, no longer merely a victim. Levi is now a calculating force capable of exacting justice and revenge with precision. Part 5 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians represents the story's climax, where Levi Stein moves from careful preparation to decisive action. By this stage, Levi has meticulously built his network, gained critical intelligence, and executed a series of financial maneuvers that destabilized the Russian elite. The tension that has been gradually mounting throughout the narrative reaches its peak, as Levi now positions himself to confront those who betrayed him and assert his power over the very society that once oppressed him. The chapter begins with Levi assessing the cumulative impact of his prior maneuvers. Markets are in flux, alliances among the aristocracy are fracturing, and key officials are exposed as corrupt or incompetent. Levi leverages this chaos with strategic precision. He approaches each enemy individually, exploiting their weaknesses and fears. For some, he manipulates legal or financial tools to strip them of wealth or credibility. For others, he uses rumor and public scandal to undermine influence. Each move is calculated to exact maximum damage while keeping Levi above suspicion, demonstrating his mastery of psychological and financial warfare. Levi's confrontation is both public and private. Publicly, he maintains the image of a sophisticated, loyal financier, someone whose rise in society seems natural and unthreatening. Privately, he orchestrates events that bring ruin to his enemies in a manner that is both satisfying and strategically irreversible. This duality reinforces the story as central tension. Levi is both a hero to some and a villain to others. The narrative emphasizes that his power is not brute force, but the ability to anticipate reactions, manipulate perceptions, and control outcomes. He has learned that true authority is often invisible, operating behind the scenes through intelligence, cunning, and timing. Part 5 also explores Levi's personal reckoning. The pursuit of revenge has demanded sacrifices, including moral compromises and the emotional toll of living a life of constant calculation. The story delves into his internal reflections. While he has achieved justice, the human cost of his actions weighs heavily on him. Some of his adversaries suffer publicly, Others lose fortunes or reputations, but collateral damage extends to innocent associates and even members of his community. Levi confronts the complex question of whether vengeance justifies the pain inflicted along the way. This moral ambiguity enriches his character, making him a layered protagonist whose brilliance is intertwined with ethical complexity. The confrontation escalates to a dramatic peak when Levi finally turns his attention to the most powerful figures responsible for his earlier betrayal. The narrative describes how he orchestrates simultaneous strikes, financial collapses, political exposure, and strategic alliances, ensuring that these elites are left powerless, humiliated, and unable to retaliate. The story emphasizes timing and precision. Levi's actions are the result of years of careful planning, demonstrating patience and intellect over impulsive action. The Russian elite, confident in their immunity, are caught off guard by the scope and sophistication of his revenge. By the end of Part 5, Levi has achieved his immediate goals. The betrayal has been avenged, his enemies dismantled, and his position of influence solidified. Yet, the chapter closes on a reflective note, suggesting that power and revenge are not ends in themselves. While Levi has triumphed, he is also aware of the moral and emotional cost of his journey. The story leaves readers anticipating the final part, where Levi must confront the lasting consequences of his actions, and the legacy he will leave behind as a man who wields wealth and intellect as instruments of justice and vengeance. Part 6 of The Jewish Banker Who Got Revenge on the Russians serves as the story's resolution, exploring the consequences of Levi Stein's journey, the moral complexities of his actions, and the legacy he leaves behind. After years of careful planning, cunning financial maneuvers, and strategic strikes against those who wronged him, Levi stands at the pinnacle of power. The Russian elite who once humiliated him are ruined, and his fortune and influence have grown to a level few could imagine. Yet, the story emphasizes that triumph and vengeance carry their own burdens, and Levi must now confront the human and ethical costs of the path he has chosen. The narrative opens with Levi reflecting on his transformation. From a vulnerable boy in a small shtetl to a masterful banker operating at the heart of European finance, his journey has been marked by brilliance, perseverance, and an unrelenting desire for justice. Yet, Levi recognizes that the very traits that enabled his rise, ruthlessness, cunning, and patience, also isolate him. Trust becomes a rare commodity, and relationships are tinged with suspicion. He has achieved what many would call ultimate power, but the story makes clear that Levi's victories are not unambiguously joyful. The weight of the lives he has affected, both positively and negatively, leaves him contemplative and at times conflicted. Part 6 also explores Levi's moral reckoning. His revenge, though meticulously executed, has consequences beyond those he intended. Innocent parties may have suffered indirectly from his actions. Allies have been tested in loyalty and conscience, and the social and economic upheavals he caused ripple through communities. Levi reflects on whether vengeance truly delivers justice or simply perpetuates cycles of corruption and harm. The narrative emphasizes the complexity of human ambition and morality, showing that Levi's genius is inseparable from the ethical ambiguities of his choices. He understands that power is not inherently virtuous, and even acts intended to correct wrongs can carry unforeseen repercussions. The story also examines Levi's strategic foresight and succession planning. Recognizing that empires, even financial ones, are temporary, Levi begins to prepare the next generation to inherit his legacy. He imparts knowledge, instills discipline, and emphasizes the importance of prudence and strategy. Through this, the narrative explores themes of continuity and mortality. Levi seeks to ensure that his influence endures beyond his own lifetime, not just in wealth, but in the principles of calculated power and resilience he has cultivated. Finally, Part 6 reflects on Levi's public and private legacy. To the outside world, he is a respected and enigmatic financier, a figure whose influence shaped markets and decisions across borders. Privately, he is haunted by the sacrifices, betrayals, and moral compromises of his journey. The story closes with an ambiguous tone. Levi has exacted his revenge and secured his place among the powerful, yet he remains a solitary figure, defined as much by the costs of his actions as by his accomplishments. The reader is left contemplating the nature of ambition, justice, and the delicate balance between brilliance and humanity. In conclusion, Part 6 solidifies Levi Stein as a complex figure, a shadow king who wields intellect, wealth, and strategy to achieve vengeance, yet must live with the enduring consequences of his choices. It is a meditation on power, morality, and the legacies we leave behind, completing the narrative arc with reflection, depth, and a sense of somber triumph.